Shalom, brothers and sisters. Shalom, shalom. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Trumpet's Call. I'm AmarYaH. I pray that you are holding on to faith, amunah, and holding on to hope during these times. Thank you for joining me once again on the channel and for another session of our Sunrise Manna. In today's session of our Sunrise Manna, we're going to be talking about the culture of this age. It is the culture of selfishness, of self-absorbedness. It is indeed a selfie culture. It's a culture in which it's all about me, 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 and then me. When you look around in the world, everywhere you look, you see people promoting themselves, trying to get ahead at any cost, even if it means stepping on their brother or their neighbor or a complete stranger. Everyone wants their 15 minutes of fame, and they want to swipe their neighbor's 15 minutes as well. They want to be in the limelight as long as possible. They want to gain an advantage. They want to be the next great thing, the American Idol. In this culture of selfishness, this culture of self-absorbedness, we find it expressed very much so in social media. Within social media, they tell you that you are all that and a bag of chips. And if you're not, you can pretend to be. You can pretend that you have the best life ever. And not many people will call you on the carpet for it because they're pretending too. So you see, today's lesson is one in which we need to really take a serious look at our stance and our position here in the world as it relates to self-promotion and boasting. Scripture teaches that we should boast in Yahuwah, but the current culture says boast in yourself, promote yourself, put yourself out there. If you don't tell people what you can do, they won't know. So boast, boast, boast. Promote, promote, promote. So is this what the Most High wants us to do? Does He want us to put ourselves out there and elevate ourselves and cause our own star to rise? Or does He want us to take a different path? Well, we're going to talk about these things today, and I pray that the Most High would speak to us all and grant us a clear indication of what His will is for us. So we're going to begin with social media. We're going to talk about social media and how it promotes and it causes people who engage in it to promote and make themselves something that they're not. On social media, you can be whatever you want to be. You can be a genius. You can be good at anything. All you need is a pic and a tagline. A pic meaning a picture. That's all you need. It could be real. It could be fake. It could be AI. It doesn't even have to be accurate. Once you post it, people will most likely believe you, no matter what you say. So when you think about social media and how it promotes this idea of bragging, boasting, self-promotion, you realize that most people on social media, it's all about their highlight reels, rather than really what's going on in their lives. It's as if they're living the most successful and awesome and entertaining life possible. And when you look in, when you get a little peek, you go, oh, wow, I wish I was living their life. But you don't know about the dirty dishes in the sink, about the crying baby, about the dirty carpet. You don't see that part. They just show you the best parts so that you can envy their lives. Perhaps you're doing it. Perhaps you're allowing people to envy your life. Is it real? Is it accurate? Another thing that social media is unfortunately promoting in this world is that they have made it normal to seek opinions from others and not from those who are in your close circle. Back in the day, you wanted advice, you'd go to your mother, your father, your auntie, your uncle, or someone wise. Maybe you go to your clergyman. But today, you take a poll. You ask people on social media, hey, what do you think I should do? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And oftentimes, it's the advice of strangers that you go with. Another way that people fake their lives on social media is through materialistic gains and materialistic ways. People don't have a genuine sense of identity and purpose. They just want to be popular. They just want to be the next big thing. So they often become very materialistic, or they demonstrate they're materialistic. They want to show what they've got. They get a new pair of shoes, you're going to see it. They get a new house, you're going to see it. They get a new boat, you're going to see it. Their children gets a new toy, you're going to see it. Whatever's going on in their lives, you're going to see it, because they're going to share with you, because they're trying to be kind, trying to keep you in the loop. All the while, they are feeding off of your impressed status. They're feeding off of your likes. They're feeding off of your thumbs up, your hearts. They're feeding off of your follows and your subscribes. They're feeding off of that energy because they're in it for something, and you're helping them to get it. Perhaps it's you. The fourth way that social media creates this lie in our lives is by presenting people the opportunity to present themselves as what they're not. It's a fake image. They present themselves as being prettier than they are, smarter than they are, taller than they are, thinner than they are, hipper than they are, sometimes even more melanated than they are. Whatever you desire to be, you can figure that out and figure out how to represent that on social media. The fifth way that social media presents an image of people not being what they are is this need and this desire to be famous. On social media, you can be famous. If your video goes viral and you get 100,000 views, 200,000 views, 1,000,000 views, oh, nobody can tell you nothing. You are it. You are famous. And everybody wants to be in your circle. Oh my goodness, look at your video, look at your post. It went viral. Because everybody wants to be famous. And if you can get people on social media to think that you're famous, then you feel like you're somebody. And you can boast and brag in that. So when we look at the role of social media in our lives and how it creates this false narrative for us, it makes us live as if we are faking it all the way. We're not making it till we're faking it. We're faking it because we're faking it. And that's what we're doing. Social media, such as it is, has become a tremendous influencer in our society. Our entire way of living has changed due to social media. I mean, really, did you ever think 50 years ago that you would do anything and then post it for everybody to see? That's just not how we operated back in the day. If you got a new car, people knew about it because they saw you driving this new car, or they were your neighbors and they saw it in your driveway. Today, everybody, people you know, people you don't know, friends of your friends, can see what's going on in your life. And you like it that way. So the influence of social media has led to this culture of me, me, me. So the influence of social media over the past 30 or so years has led to an even greater culture of me, a culture of selfishness, a culture of bragging, of boasting. So we're going to look at a few articles and we're going to explore the ways in which we are being conditioned and encouraged to boast, to brag, to promote, to place ourselves on a pedestal for others to adore and idolize. So let's take a look at our first article. This one is from the website socialself.com, and it is 10 reasons why people brag and 10 ways to deal with it. Okay? Well, the quick answer is that people brag because they're being socialized to do so. Everybody's doing it. Everybody wants to be famous. But let's see what the article has to say. Have you ever talked to someone who tried to one-up you in a conversation, take all the credit, or only talked about themselves? If so, you might have had a first-hand encounter with a braggart, someone who brags a lot. If you know, love, or work with someone like this, you might wonder if it's pride or insecurity that causes them to brag. You might also want some tips on how to deal with people who brag a lot. This article will explore the psychology of boasting, why people do it, and ideas about the best ways to respond to bragging. What is bragging? When someone brags, they highlight their positive traits, qualities, or accomplishments. This kind of self-promotion is usually an attempt to impress other people. Bragging can be subtle or obvious. People who brag in obvious ways might try too hard to be liked or exaggerate certain traits or stories in an attempt to seem cool, funny, or important. People who are more subtle may hide their bragging with humor, sarcasm, or even self-deprecating remarks. These are remarks in which you kind of put yourself down a little bit, all the while still lifting yourself up. There's nothing wrong with having a healthy amount of confidence, but bragging is when you take it too far by exaggerating your strengths, achievements, or abilities. Healthy relationships always require a balance between the feelings and needs of two people, and bragging can disrupt this balance. If you only talk about yourself, it can make you seem arrogant or selfish and can cause your relationships to become strained or one-sided. Types of bragging. There are different kinds of bragging, and some are harder to spot than others. Broadly speaking, there are two kinds of bragging: overt bragging and covert bragging. Overt bragging is when someone boasts openly about themselves or their achievements in an effort to make a good impression on people. Pausing here. When people overtly brag, everybody knows it. Everybody knows it because this person, as they're bragging, they're puffing out their chest and they're saying it with their chest. Oh, I am so smart. I always got the best grades in school because I was always the smartest one in the class. And oh my goodness, people around me are so short, but I have always been tall for my age. And I have had the best complexion. You know those ones, those types who brag about everything because they're good at everything they do. This is overt bragging. But covert bragging, aka humble bragging, is harder to detect. A humble brag is a thinly disguised effort to present yourself in a positive light. It may include a joke, a complaint, or some self-deprecating statement that's intended to win attention, praise, or validation from others. Even though it's more subtle, covert bragging tends to have the same negative effects on how others perceive you. An example of covert bragging. Oh man, I really had a hard time today. I had to stick around after work today because people needed me to really help them with a few things that they didn't really understand how to do. And, it's unfortunate. There's not a whole lot of people who can do what I do, but it does lead to me having to stick around oftentimes after work because I know how to do this particular thing, whatever it is, and they don't know how. Oh well, c'est la vie, such is my life. You see how this person is complaining, but they're really boasting at the same time? Perhaps you know someone like that. Perhaps it's you. Continuing. Below is a chart with different examples of overt and covert bragging. Examples of overt bragging: boasting about how much money you have, flaunting luxury or expensive items, name-dropping important people you know, telling stories that paint you as a hero, bragging about your sexual conquests, one-upping someone's achievements. Examples of covert bragging: complaining about how much you get hit on, as if you're so good looking that people are always wanting to date you. using self-deprecation to get validation, pretending to dislike compliments and praise, sad fishing on social media for attention. We're going to come back to that. Bragging and then downplaying what you said. So you'll say something like, you know what, I'm the best at cards. But sometimes I lose. A few times I lose, but mostly I win. But then there are times when I meet someone who is really good and I have to really give extra effort to win that card game, but I normally win. You see how this person is bragging, and then they downplay, and then they brag, and then they downplay. But let's get back to sad fishing. Sad fishing on social media is a term used to describe a behavioral trend where people make exaggerated claims about their emotional problems to generate sympathy. Perhaps you know someone who sad fishes, someone who talks about how things are going rotten in their lives all the time. And they're always rotten and they're always bad, and people feel sorry for them. Perhaps they'll come and comment on their post and tell them how sorry they are that they're going through such a bad time. And when people do that, those people who are sad fishing, they get rewarded because that's what they're after. They want your sympathy, they want your attention. And so then they learn to continue to do it. So things are always bad in their lives so they can get attention from others. Eventually, people catch on and they lose interest. Continuing, why do people brag? When you dig a little deeper into the psychology of bragging, you find that people brag for many reasons. While some brag just to show off, in other cases, there is a more complex explanation. Below are 10 reasons why people brag. Number 1, they feel insecure about themselves. A lot of people who seem too confident in themselves are actually deeply insecure. For them, bragging might be a way of masking their insecurities or getting help from others to build up self-esteem. When someone doesn't know how to find validation within, they are more likely to look to others for recognition, attention, and praise. Number 2, they're trying too hard to be liked. Bragging is often a tactic used to be more likable or to get others to form a positive opinion of you. Unfortunately, it isn't a very effective impression management technique because research shows people who boast are more likely to make a bad impression rather than a good one. Someone who brags might mistakenly think that someone will be impressed by their wealth, status, or title. Some people try too hard to seem funny or cool, and others can sense that they are not being authentic. And that's a really good point because when people are putting on airs, when people are sad fishing or they're trying hard to be liked or they're boasting or bragging about themselves because they actually feel insecure, you may not catch on right away, but eventually people tend to catch on. They tend to become aware of these things. And the person who was doing these things end up getting the opposite of what they wanted. They wanted to be liked, they wanted attention, they wanted to feel special. And oftentimes people will start to avoid you if you do these things. Because remember, if we live in a culture where people want to focus on themselves and you want others to focus on you, eventually they're going to get tired of focusing on you because they want the attention on themselves. And even the most loving person who is genuinely humble will soon grow weary of focusing all their attention on one needy person after another. Continuing. Number 3, people brag because they don't realize that they're bragging. Not everyone who brags does it on purpose, and many don't even realize when they're doing it. While it might be obvious to others that they're boasting, in their mind, they may just be sharing good news with friends or trying to keep the conversation positive. People who don't realize they brag a lot lack social awareness and don't understand the way they're being perceived by others. This one, I think it's possible that people could brag and not know it, but they would have to have some psychological issues and not be able to perceive others in order to not know when people are sensing a certain way about what they're sharing. For the most part, we should be emotionally intelligent and emotionally mature enough to know when to share and when not to share. And when we overshare, we should know it, feel it, and then backtrack. So this person who doesn't know that they're bragging, they may have some deficiency in that area. Number 4, they're awkward or socially anxious. Talking about themselves to the point of bragging might be a nervous habit for someone who gets really nervous during conversations. They may be feeling awkward, self-conscious, or trying to fill up an awkward silence and keep the conversation going. I've been in situations like this in the past where I felt like I needed to keep conversation going, and I would talk, and sometimes later on I'd think about the conversation and I'd say, "What were you saying? What were you talking about?" Because I would talk about all kinds of things just so that there wouldn't be an awkward silence. And so I can understand that this would happen. But ultimately, what I would settle on is I would settle on trying to get the other person to talk about themselves, because I recognize if I want people to like me and I can get them to talk about themselves, then maybe they'll like me because they'll think, oh, this person wants to hear all about me. I actually thought that back then. Maybe some of you think it today. Number 5, they overshare in an attempt to open up. Some people have a hard time opening up and talking about themselves to other people. Their early attempts to be more open with people might be awkward, and they might come across as braggarts. For example, someone who is usually reserved or quiet might not know how much is too much when it comes to talking about themselves, and might share so much that other people think they're boasting. Number 6, they have poor social skills. Poor social skills can be the root cause of socially inappropriate behavior for some people prone to self-promotion. Picking up on social cues is one of the most important social skills that people rely on to know how the other person is feeling during conversation. People who don't have the skill are much more likely to say or do things that are offensive or annoying to others. And as we're going through these, you can see how many of these overlap. You can see how one person might find themselves engaging in several of these things at a time. Number 7, they lack empathy. Empathy is the ability to place yourselves in the shoes of someone else and sense what they might be thinking, feeling, and experiencing. Boasting, self-enhancement, and narcissistic traits are more common in people who score low on empathy. It's really interesting because if someone feels a need to boast about themselves repeatedly, even though they might be picking up on something coming from the other person that they really don't want to hear it, it could be a sign that they may be in the narcissistic category, or they might be a sociopath. You just never know. Sometimes the nicest, seemingly nicest of people can have significant emotional problems, or even be plagued with demonic ruachs that causes them to behave in certain ways. So we need to exercise discernment and not hang around people who continue to pile on about their good traits, even when you may say, I kind of don't want to hear about that anymore. Number 8, they have a superiority or inferiority complex. Most people who brag don't really believe they're superior to others and don't intend to behave as if they are, but a few might actually have a superiority complex. For someone with a superiority complex, bragging could be a reflection of their unrealistically positive view of themselves. Bragging can also be caused by an inferiority complex, who might use bragging as a self-defense mechanism to hide their flaws or insecurities from others. And this is a really good point as well, that there are people who just don't feel good about themselves, and so they say things that they've done in the past. I've done this in the past. So I can see this one happening as well. Number 9, they put people down to boost themselves up. Most of the time, braggarts don't have bad intentions, but it would be naive to think there aren't any bad people in the world. The worst kind of bragging is when someone puts other people down intentionally to feel better about themselves. Boasting is annoying, but putting other people down is downright mean, and it is often a sign of a toxic or narcissistic person. And unfortunately, brothers and sisters, more and more we're seeing these type of people, particularly in the public eye. Number 10, they want to be the center of attention. Wanting attention from other people doesn't automatically make you a braggart. But bragging is often a pretty obvious attention-seeking behavior. Someone with a compulsive need to overshare on Facebook or broadcast their achievements to others may just be looking for attention. Some show-offs just do it for the likes or compliments, while others are trying to spark feelings of envy or insecurity in other people. Trust and believe, brothers and sisters, that there are people out there who share the things that are happening in their lives that may or may not be real because they're trying to get other people to become envious of them so that they can feel better about themselves. There's a ploy, there's a tactic, there's an agenda. And so we have to be aware and not give these people what they're looking for. Don't even be interested. Don't watch, don't click, don't like, don't thumbs up. As a matter of fact, social media isn't something that we should be focusing too much of our time on these days anyway. So you might want to think about getting off of it, especially since there's so many people there who just want attention. Final thoughts. Bragging is an annoying habit, but not everyone who brags does so intentionally. While bragging is sometimes caused by pride or big ego, it can also be the result of poor social skills, social anxiety, or low self-esteem. Sometimes you can send a subtle message by changing the topic or giving shorter replies. When this doesn't work, you might need to initiate a difficult conversation, limit your interactions, or simply choose to ignore the bragging. Now that becomes difficult, but sometimes it may be necessary to end these relationships when people in your life won't stop talking about themselves and they don't seem to be interested in having a two-person conversation and a two-person relationship. It's as if they are in relationship with you, but they're the only ones they can see. Common questions. Why is bragging so annoying? Bragging is often seen as a sign of pride, which is off-putting to people who value humility. Excessive boasting may cause relationships to become one-sided if the braggart focuses too much on themselves. Bragging can also trigger unpleasant feelings of envy and insecurity in some people. And if you'd like to read more of this article, you can find it at socialself.com. So this has become a really unfortunate and unpleasant part of our society and of our culture. And it has crept its way into the awakening, into churches, into synagogues, into places that are deemed quote unquote holy or set apart. We're constantly boasting and bragging about the things that we do and who we are and who we're not and who we know and what we have. Boasting has found its home in the awakening as we boast about our true identity, our true heritage. We're Hebrews and Gentiles. They can't measure up to us. We're smarter. We are more righteous. We are certainly more melanated. And we have a greater sense of purpose, a greater sense of identity, so on and so forth. And some of these things may be true. Many of these things may be true. But Abba did not awaken us to our true identity so that we could boast in our accomplishments or boast in the gifts that he has given to us. We are to boast in the giver of the gifts, not the gifts themselves. So as we continue on this vein of making ourselves more than what we are, we risk coming under the Most High's judgment, because the Most High resists the proud, but he gives grace unto the humble. And so we have to reform ourselves, those of us who have found these qualities, these characteristics, having a home in us. We have learned and we have been conditioned by the world to be self-promoters, especially in the workplace. Culture in and of itself is comprised of artifacts, norms, values, rituals, and stories. but also inserted into the culture is self-promotion as a means to success. So we have artifacts, we have things that tell a story. For example, the Liberty Bell. People see that as an artifact or an icon that means something about the history of this country, the United States. We have norms or normal patterns of behavior within a society. You have the values of the society. For example, people know that it's not right to walk up to somebody and smack them across the face for no good reason. That's one of our values. We know that it's not good to lie. It's not good to steal. Okay? We have rituals. Some people have rituals of going to church still. Some people have rituals of going to synagogue, and so on and so forth. Heroes. People have heroes. Heroes in the Bible, in the scriptures. Or perhaps they have heroes in their own life. Maybe it's their mother or their father or some other person that they know that's become their hero. Or maybe somebody on social media has become their hero. And we have stories. The stories we tell repeatedly within our own families and within the culture that make up our cultural identity. But what has inserted itself into the culture and the cultural identity of those not only in America, but in the world is this idea of self-promotion as a means to success. That if you want to be successful, you have to promote yourself to kingdom come, because everybody's got to know what you can do and what you have done. And that's the only way you're going to be successful. That's the belief, and that's how people operate. And it has become cancer that has been inserted into society where relationships are not meaningful. They're not as meaningful as they once were, because you never know whether or not someone is in your life or pursuing a relationship with you because they want you or they want what you can offer them. Before we end for today, I wanted to just speak briefly about why some of us promote ourselves or brag or boast. And I wanted to speak about it from a position of deficiency. Those people who have negative feelings about themselves, who hate themselves, who have low self-worth and low self-esteem. These who suffer from low self-worth boast and brag for a reason that's slightly different than those who boast and brag because they are narcissistic or because they strongly believe that they are worthy of every good thing in the whole world. Okay, it's a different scenario. So I wanted to speak to those of you who boast because you feel like you need to. There have been times in my life in the past when I absolutely despised myself, hated myself, couldn't see any beauty, couldn't see any worth, any value. I would consider myself, and I have actually said this, spare parts for humanity. And so I know what it's like to feel as if you're nothing, to feel as if you in and of yourself have no self-worth. And in situations like that, many of us may find ourselves boasting about the things that we have done and the things that we have accomplished just to make ourselves feel human, just to make ourselves feel as if we have some worth or some value or that we mean something to somebody. So perhaps you're smart and you get good grades and you begin to boast about your grades because it may make you feel good about yourself. Or you have the ability to create art, music, painting, poetry, something that makes people really inspired, and you boast in it because people tell you you're good and you go, yes, I am very good. And it makes you feel really good to be praised by others, because when you receive the attention and the praise from others, it makes you feel as if you have worth and value. And then you don't hate yourself so much. So at those times, you are living based on the opinions of others, and you are deriving your sense of self, your sense of worth from what other people think about you. And that is likely the reason why, at least in part, that you're boasting. Perhaps you become accustomed to the praise, and that's why you do it. But for those who have low self-worth, they don't think too highly of themselves, not in their hearts. So they need others to think highly of them so that they can level the playing field for themselves. So I'm speaking to you, and I want to say, boasting is still wrong. Whether you're doing it because you think that you're all that and a bag of chips, or you're boasting because you feel rotten about who you are, boasting is still wrong. because Scripture teaches that we're to boast in the Most High and Him alone. So if you're receiving something from others, if you are telling people how good you are about the things that you've done or about the things that you've accomplished so that you might receive some praise from them, this is idolatry. And the Father's not pleased with that because He has given us His love. He has poured His love upon us. What need do we have to try to get love from other people when we have Abba, Yahuwah, who has poured His love upon us and demonstrated His love for us in that while we were yet sinners, He sent His beautiful Son to be the atoning sacrifice for our nation and for those who cleave. What great love He demonstrates to us every day. Every new dawning, His mercies and His compassions are new for us. He gives us food to eat and a roof over our heads. He gives us family. He gives us friends. And you may say, well, I don't have any of those things. You may be homeless. You may not have a good family. You may not have food to eat. If you trust and if you humble yourself, the Father will grant you everything that you need because He is a good Father. He's good. So no longer allow yourself to boast in your accomplishments because you're trying to make up for a deficiency within yourself. Allow the Father to be your daily bread through His Son. Allow the Father to feed you what you need to feel good about yourself. Allow yourself to settle into this belief that AmarYaH, Abba, your Father, created you, and He doesn't make junk. And so you have worth and value because you were created. You didn't evolve from a monkey. You were created. You were formed and shaped in your mother's womb. And you survived the journey, and you're here. So know that the Father loves those whom He creates. And if He has purposed you to be here, then you have a reason for being here. Therefore, you have value to Him. For all of us, whether we have low self-esteem or not, we have to derive our sense of ourselves, our sense of worth and value and importance from what AmarYaH says about us and not from anybody else, not even from our own selves. It has to be, who does Abba say that I am? What does He say I can do? Who am I intrinsically at the heart of who I am? I'm His daughter. I'm His son. Therefore, I have value. So I just wanted to encourage you. Let go of the boasting if you're doing so in order to be seen by people so that you can have worth and value in their eyes. I will tell you something. People could love you one day and hate you the next. So if you derive your sense of self from other people, you could perhaps feel lovely about yourself one day when they love you, and then when they turn on you and hate you, you're going to hate yourself. Don't depend on fickle people to tell you who you are. Let your Father and your Creator tell you who you are, and boast in Him and His goodness, and not in your accomplishments. I just want to thank you, brothers and sisters, for joining me today on the channel and for this part 1 of our boasting series. I pray you'll join me in our next session for part 2 as we delve into the boasting and self-promotion that has permeated the culture, particularly the workplace, and in our homes even, through the bane of our existence, social media. Let's end with prayer. Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for this lesson. I thank you for teaching us what you want us to know regarding this topic of boasting. I thank you for calling me to teach on it. And Father, if there are any here who have engaged in boasting because they feel so badly about themselves, maybe they hate themselves, and they just don't know which way to go, they don't know what to do, they feel such self-loathing, I pray, Father, that you would help them to see themselves through your eyes, that you would baruch them and wrap your arms of love around them and cause them to step into a love relationship with you through your Son, and that they no more feel deficient in any way because you fill all the holes. We all have holes in our lives in some way, shape, or form, places where we don't quite measure up. We don't know how to do everything perfectly. But you, Father, you fill all the holes with your presence. Fill the holes of our lives, Father, and let us boast in you, the Most High. We should boast only in you and not in ourselves and not in other people. I pray, Father, that you would heal our broken hearts as a nation, because as a nation, we have been so hurt and battered that we sometimes slip into boasting in prideful ways to cover for our deficiency, to cover for our hurts and our pains. Heal our nation, Father. Restore us. Restore us back into your presence. Let us walk before you and be perfect, because we are your children, not because we know how to do fancy things or because we have fancy clothes or fancy shoes. Let us boast in you, Father, in your presence. All of these barakah I ask in Yahushua HaMashiach's name. Amen and amen. Well, brothers and sisters, thank you for joining me. And I pray that the Most High Yahuwah would baruch and keep you, and that he would make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. I pray that he would lift up his countenance upon you and grant you shalom, peace in every area, and that you would come to grips with who you are in Yahuwah, not standing alone, but standing in him, standing under the shadow of his almighty wing, being his child, his daughter, his son, and the worth and the value that is afforded to you as being a chosen of the Most High Yahuwah. You have no need to hate yourself. Love the Father. Hate sin. Shalom.